Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Lillian, and here I share stories, thoughts, and moments from my friends. The day my sister-in-law told me that Ava was sleeping with my husband, I was hand-washing a wine glass we'd used to toast her birthday. I remember the water was still warm, bubbles foaming gently at the rim. It was a Riesling glass, tall, thin, the kind I only brought out for family occasions. I was holding it by the stem when Janice said it, and I remember thinking, "Don't squeeze. If it breaks, it'll be your blood and not his." I didn't say anything. I just rinsed the soap off and set the glass in the rack like it was any other day, because until that moment it had been. I'm Judith, 64 years old if it matters. I live in the same white-panelled farmhouse where I was born, in Pine Ridge, Georgia, the kind of place where folks still say, "Yes, ma'am," even when they're trying to swindle you. My parents left me this house after they passed. It was built by my great-grandfather after the war, stone by stone, and I've cared for it like one of my own children. That house has seen everything. My wedding to Randall in the lilac garden, our 2 sons' first steps across the pine floors, our dog Jasper's muddy paw prints on the porch. Even my mother's final breath happened in that front room, sunlight pooling on her blanket. It isn't just wood and nails to me. It's bone. And Randall knew that. That house wasn't just mine by deed. It was my heart. He always said he loved it too. Said it was home. We'd been married 38 years. We raised 2 sons together. I wasn't perfect, and neither was he, but we made it work. Or at least I thought we had. Then came Ava. She married our oldest, Mitchell, straight out of nursing school. A slip of a girl with soft hands, polite manners, and eyes that never quite settled when you looked her in the face. I remember thinking she was fragile. She had a hard pregnancy, some baby blues after Leo was born. I helped her through it, brought soup, bathed the baby when she couldn't stop crying, cleaned their apartment when she fell behind. She used to call me her second mother. I guess that's what made the betrayal so sickening. Janice, Randall's sister, called on a Tuesday. I'd just hosted a small lunch for her birthday. Peach cobbler, chicken salad, the usual. She'd stayed behind to help me tidy up and had gotten unusually quiet as I washed the last of the dishes. Then she said, "I can't keep quiet any more, Jude." You deserve to know. I saw Randall with Ava. I stopped moving, hand frozen in the soap suds. "With Ava," I repeated. Janice nodded. "At the lake house, 2 weeks ago. They weren't talking." I should have screamed or cried, but all I did was breathe, carefully, controlled, as if my whole body had become glass. She put a hand on mine. "I'm sorry, honey." I rinsed the glass and said, "So am I." That night, I lay awake in bed, Randall snoring beside me, and realized the way he'd touched me lately, gentle, distant, wasn't love. It was guilt. I thought back to last Thanksgiving, when Ava had offered to help carve the turkey, her hands a little too familiar with Randall's elbow, or the way she laughed too hard at his stories, cheeks flushed like she'd been sipping more than wine. How had I missed it? Worse yet, what else was I missing? I began listening differently, watching. Randall had started taking walks on weekends. He said they helped with his blood pressure. I followed him once, discreetly. He didn't see me, but I saw him get in Ava's car. She drove him to the edge of town, and he didn't come back for hours. I didn't confront him, not then. I let the days pass. I made him breakfast, folded his socks, smiled when he mentioned Ava dropping off soup for Leo. But in the background, I started collecting things. Bills, copies of the house deed, the prenup we'd signed 38 years ago. I had a binder with labelled tabs. You learn that kind of thing when your whole world has been one long, quiet service to others. That's how I discovered the new mortgage application, buried in his email, one that listed the farmhouse as his asset, one that required my signature. I knew what they were planning. He was going to file for divorce, claim amicable separation, and sell the house to Ava's cousin who flipped properties, get a payout, move in with her, and leave me in the dust. I waited until Sunday morning. We were eating pancakes in the sunroom. I handed him a small yellow envelope. "What's this?" he asked, mouth full. "An invitation," I said. He opened it. It was a letter from my attorney. "I thought you said we didn't need lawyers." "I lied," I said softly, sipping my coffee, "like you did." He stared at me. "Judith." "You know," I added, "I think I liked it better when you lied with flowers and silence. At least then I could pretend." His fork clattered to the plate. "I don't know what you're talking about," he began, but I was already clearing the table. The meeting was set for Thursday morning, downtown. Ava showed up too. That surprised me. But maybe it shouldn't have. After all, if you're sleeping with your father-in-law and plotting to steal his wife's house, you may as well show up to the signing. She wore beige, tasteful, quiet, non-threatening. I wore navy, with pearl studs and a pin my mother gave me, the kind you wear when you need to look unshakable. Randall didn't look at me. He just adjusted his blazer like he was playing some executive role in a play he didn't quite know the lines to. The lawyer, Ava's, not mine, slid a stack of papers across the desk. "This includes the mutual release of all property claims, Judith. As discussed, once signed, the house can be reassigned to Randall in exchange for—" I raised my hand. "My lawyer advised me not to sign that document." The room froze. Randall turned to me, face coloring. "What?" "I said I won't sign away my rights. The house was deeded to me before we were married. My name is on every line. And your little maneuver to remortgage it without my signature? Illegal." Ava blanched. "We weren't trying to—" "I wasn't finished," I said calmly. "Randall, you wanted to keep things quiet. That's fine, so do I. But if you press this, if you try to sell my family's land out from under me, I'll go to court. And trust me, no judge in Georgia is going to side with a man who slept with his son's wife." Her mouth opened slightly, like she was going to object. I smiled. "And I have emails." We walked out in silence. Randall didn't follow me to the parking lot. That night, I sat in the garden and let the dusk settle on my skin. I hadn't cried yet. Not properly. Not since the wine glass. Instead, I opened a box of old photos. My boys playing in the mud. Randall holding Mitchell as a baby. Ava at the kitchen table, wearing my apron and eating cobbler. I should have felt rage, but all I felt was something deeper, a resolve, like the earth finally firming beneath me. They wanted me gone, so now I would make staying look like power. I didn't tell Mitchell. How could I? How do you tell your own son that his father's been sleeping with his wife? That the woman who gave birth to his child, your grandchild, has been playing house with his daddy behind his back? You don't. You just hope that somewhere deep down the truth starts to stink. I did tell Janice, though. She came over the next day with a basket of lemons from her tree and the look of someone who'd lived too long with other people's secrets. "I knew you wouldn't let them win," she said, pouring us 2 glasses of sweet tea. "But I gotta ask, what's the end game, Jude?" "Simple," I said. "I keep the house, and I let the rest fall apart on its own. Because the thing about liars like Ava and Randall is, They don't need enemies. They do just fine ruining themselves. 2 weeks after the lawyer meeting, Ava stopped posting on social media. She'd been one of those women who curated everything: baby photos with filters, surprise brunches with Randall at lakeside diners, vague quotes about choosing joy. Then silence. A month later, I saw Mitchell at the pharmacy. He looked pale, eyes shadowed, like a man who hadn't been sleeping well. He hugged me tight, longer than usual. "You ever feel like you were the last to know something?" he asked. I didn't answer, just rubbed his back the way I used to when he was 5 and had night terrors. He left with a box of cold medicine and a quiet, "Love you, Mom." I stood by the vitamins and whispered, "I love you too. Even if the truth burns, it belongs to him now." In the meantime, I lived like I always had, in the house my mama scrubbed down every Sunday morning, the one with the squeaky third step and the porch swing Randall never fixed, the one I nearly lost to betrayal. I changed the locks, not out of fear, but dignity. Randall didn't come around much. Once he called to ask about some garden tools he'd left in the shed. I told him they'd been donated. To who? "Someone who doesn't sleep with their son's wife," I said, and hung up before he could try charm or rage, his 2 fallback modes. I think that was the moment he realized I wasn't bluffing. Then came the letter, typed, formal, from Randall's new lawyer, a notice of intent to pursue partial ownership, citing marital contribution. He was still trying to take the house. I called my own attorney, Lisa, who'd gone to high school with my youngest. She read it, laughed, and said, "Let him try. He's standing on sand." But it wasn't the legal part that got me. It was the realization that after everything, after years of birthdays and hospital stays and burned dinners and late-night hand-holding, Randall was willing to fight me over a house he never built. A house he'd planned to gift to his mistress. And for what? Pride? Money? Control? That night I took down the family portrait from the hallway, the one with all of us grinning on the porch. Mitchell, Jonah, Ava, baby Leo, and Randall with his arm around me like we were solid stone. I slid the photo from its frame and placed it in a drawer. Then I stood in the hallway and stared at the empty wall. It looked better that way. My neighbour, Marie, started coming over more often. She was a widow too, though hers had passed cleanly. No betrayal, no legal wrangling, just a sudden heart attack while gardening. She brought over homemade soup and stories about her sisters, most of which ended in laughter. "You're glowing," she said one afternoon, stirring gumbo on my stove. "What's your secret?" "Divorce," I said. She cackled so loud she nearly dropped the ladle. We sat on the porch, bowls in hand, and watched the sun set over the cottonwoods. "This place," she said, "feels like it belongs to someone who knows how to live." I nodded. "I'm learning." 3 months after I refused to sign Randall's document, a for sale sign went up in front of Ava and Mitchell's house. I pretended not to notice, but Janice came over with fresh gossip and peach muffins. "Mitchell's moving in with friends. Ava's gone." "Gone?" "Ran off. Took the baby and everything but the washer. Rumor is Randall stopped footing the bills, left her hanging." Poetic. I walked down to the mailbox that evening and saw her car pull away from the curb. Fast, like she was afraid someone might see her. She didn't glance back at the house, or me. Just disappeared. I found a small teddy bear on the grass the next morning. Leo's. I washed it, stitched the torn ear, and placed it in a box with no address. Some things don't need returning. I didn't ask Mitchell what happened. I let him come to me. He did, one rainy afternoon in October. knocked on my door, hair soaked, shoulders slumped. I opened the door and saw the man behind the boy I'd raised. Tired, betrayed, fractured. "I think I hate them both," he said. "You don't have to," I said softly. "Just don't be like them." He came in. I made tea. We sat in silence for 20 minutes. Then he told me everything. How Randall had been helping Ava financially behind his back. How she'd gotten cold, dismissive. How he'd found emails, photos, a receipt for a hotel in Atlanta under both their names. I listened, didn't say, "I told you so," didn't cry, just handed him a blanket and let him stay the night. He asked to move in for a while. I said yes. For the first time in years, I heard laughter echo through the house again. Jonah came by too, with his girlfriend. They fixed the porch swing. Mitchell patched the roof. We cooked together. We sat in the living room with old records playing and coffee in hand. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And Randall? He filed for bankruptcy in December. Turns out being reckless has a price. I heard he tried to move in with a friend, but that fizzled. Ava went back to her sisters in Kentucky. No one called me to share this, but in small towns, news moves like dandelion fluff, quietly and everywhere. Sometimes I imagine the two of them, sitting in someone else's borrowed living room, wondering how it all slipped away. I don't feel pity, just peace. Because some homes don't need fences, they need roots. And I've got mine. The winter after Ava left, the house creaked in familiar ways again. The radiators hissed, the wind tapped the windows like it always had. But I no longer flinched when I heard a car door outside or the chime of an unexpected phone call. I had survived the kind of betrayal that should have shattered me, and instead I was stronger for it. Mitchell stayed in the guest room for a few months. He helped around the house, cooked, even started a little online business fixing antique radios. I didn't ask questions. It was enough to see him laugh again, even if the laugh came out rough sometimes, like it was still clearing the dust of grief. One evening, I found him sitting on the porch with a box of old photographs, the kind I thought Ava had taken with her when she left. But apparently, Mitchell had rescued a few things. He handed me one. It was a photo of Randall, young, standing next to my father in front of the barn. They were smiling, before everything twisted. "Do you ever miss him?" Mitchell asked. I looked at the photo, at the man who'd once held my hand at midnight in the ER, waiting for news about our baby's fever. The same man who'd later betray everything we'd built for the attention of someone younger, someone who should have called me Mom. "No," I said honestly, "but I remember who he used to be." Mitchell nodded. I think I needed to hear that. He looked down at the picture again. He loved this house. Not like you did, but it mattered to him once. "Once," I agreed, "and then he sold the memory of it for a hotel room and a lie." There was no bitterness in my voice anymore, just a clean line in the sand. Mitchell blinked hard and smiled, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "I'm going to rebuild, Mom. For me. For Leo." "I know you will," I said, placing a hand on his. "Do you think I'll ever trust again?" I thought about it. You'll trust again when you stop needing others to validate your worth. You're enough, Mitchell, even if the world lied to you. That winter, I joined a quilting group at the community center. I hadn't sewn in years, not since the boys were in school and I made Halloween costumes out of tablecloths and duct tape. But the motion was still there in my fingers, stitch by stitch, like threading stories through time. One day, a woman in the group, Helen, looked up from her fabric and said, "You've got steady hands for someone who's been through hell." I laughed. That's what keeps them steady. Helen introduced me to a few other women, retired teachers, widows, one divorcee who used to be a dental hygienist. They welcomed me without questions, just warmth and sharp wit. We started meeting outside the quilting room, shared soup recipes, talked about grandkids, old lovers, money worries. One night I told them my story. The short version. Helen said, "If I were you, I'd have torched his damn car." But another woman, Rose, just nodded slowly and said, "You did it better. You let the truth do the burning." That stuck with me. I didn't need vengeance in the way people usually imagined it, fire and fury. What I had done was quieter, but more powerful. I had refused to let them steal what wasn't theirs. I had stayed rooted. I had turned betrayal into a boundary. Sometime in early spring, I got a call from a real estate agent asking if I wanted to sell the house. Said she'd heard it was up for grabs. I smiled. "Tell whoever told you that to try again, and bring a lawyer." She stammered something and hung up. I didn't get mad. I just baked a pecan pie, because that's what my mama used to do when people underestimated her. Jonah proposed to his girlfriend in the backyard under the dogwood tree. He asked if they could have the wedding there too. I cried and said yes before he finished asking. The wedding was simple, just family and close friends. Mitchell was best man. Leo toddled around dropping petals after the bride passed, and I wore a lavender dress with the pin my mother gave me. Janice came, so did Marie and Helen and the quilting ladies. Randall did not. He wasn't invited. After the cake was cut and the music died down, Jonah pulled me aside. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm full," I said. "Not tired?" "Maybe a little," I smiled. "But I think it's the kind of tired that comes from joy, not survival." He kissed my forehead. "You deserve that." Mitchell gave a toast. He said, "This house is more than wooden walls. It's where we learned how to love, how to lose, and how to get back up. And that's all because of Mum." I felt my breath hitch. It was the first time since everything fell apart that I cried in front of everyone. And I didn't feel embarrassed. I felt proud. I had stayed, I had rebuilt. And now my home was filled again, not with ghosts, but with truth. After the wedding, I found a card slipped under my front door. It was from Ava. The handwriting was neat. Too neat. "Judith, I know you'll never forgive me. I don't expect you to. But I wanted to say thank you for loving me once, even when I didn't deserve it. I hope Leo grows up to have your backbone. I'm sorry." I stared at it for a long time. Then I tore it in half and dropped it in the fireplace. Not out of anger, but because some apologies don't belong in frames. They belong to the ash. The summer I turned 65, I threw myself a birthday party. No one else planned to. Not that I expected it. Mitchell had Leo full-time by then. Jonah had just returned from his honeymoon in Asheville, and I hadn't spoken to Randall in almost 9 months. But I wasn't going to let the silence of others write the story of my life anymore. So I made the lemon cake myself, the way my mother used to, with zest in the frosting and a toothpick stuck in the top to test the centre. I arranged wildflowers from the back garden into jars, set out folding chairs beneath the big tree where Randall had once promised we'd grow old together. Funny how the promises of men rot faster than the soil they're spoken on. Marie helped string up lights. Helen brought potato salad. Janice arrived with 2 bottles of wine and a giant paper crown she insisted I wear. Mitchell came late, holding Leo in one arm and a large manila envelope in the other. I knew that look. The look of a son who had found something in a drawer he wished he hadn't. "I found this in Dad's old office," he said quietly. handing me the envelope. "It's from last year." I opened it. Inside was a copy of a forged deed, one that transferred the farmhouse to Randall's name only, dated just 2 weeks before our divorce papers were finalized. He'd tried again, silently, illegally, and failed. Because it never went through. Because I had already locked it down with my lawyer, filed the necessary claims. But still, the paper felt cold in my hands, not because it had power, but because it reminded me how deep the betrayal had run. Mitchell sat beside me, guilt painting his face. "I should have known," he whispered. "You weren't supposed to know," I said. "That was their whole game." "But he's my father." I looked at him. That doesn't mean he was right. He stared at the trees a long time, then said, "You're the one who taught me how to hold a hammer, how to fix a leak, how to stand up when someone pushes." He never did any of that. I didn't cry. I just took his hand. Later that evening, when the sun began to drop low over the hills and the jar lights flickered on, I made a little speech. Nothing grand, just a few words that felt like mine. "Most of you know I went through a storm this year," I said. "But what I learned is this. Sometimes the winds come to clear out the rot. And when they do, the roots that remain are the ones worth building around." I didn't name names. But I didn't have to. They all knew. A few weeks later, I got a call from a lawyer in Kentucky. Ava had listed me as a reference for a housing application. The audacity. I didn't return the call. Some people learn, some people don't. But it's not your job to be the teacher of every lesson. Sometimes survival is enough. Jonah called the following week. "Have you thought about writing all this down?" he asked. I blinked. "What do you mean?" "This story, your story, the house, the betrayal, the rebuild. People need to hear this stuff, especially women." I laughed. "You think anyone wants to read about an old woman standing her ground?" "I think they need to," he said. I thought about it. Maybe I would, maybe not. But I did start a journal, just for me. The first line read, "He tried to take my house. She tried to take my dignity. I kept both." That fall, Mitchell started seeing someone, a woman named Tasha. Soft voice, strong hands, sharp sense of humor. She was gentle with Leo and with Mitchell's heart. He introduced her to me over Sunday lunch. I watched him watch her, and I saw it. That flicker of something real. Not perfect, but honest. After the dishes were cleared, he asked if I'd ever consider turning the back shed into a studio. "For what?" I asked. "You," he said. "Quilting, writing, hosting, something for you." I hadn't thought about that shed in years. It had been Randall's tool storage. Dusty, half rotten, forgotten. "Maybe," I said, already picturing curtains and a kettle. It took a few weeks, but Mitchell and Jonah helped clear it out. We installed a small desk, a rocking chair, shelves lined with fabric, a bulletin board. Marie brought over a rug. Helen pinned a note to the corkboard. "You stayed. That's power." One chilly morning in November, I sat in that shed with the window cracked just enough to let the breeze in, and I felt it. Peace. Not the fake kind, not the polite kind women are taught to pretend at, but the kind that comes from surviving the worst and knowing that you came through with your name, your soul, and your damn house intact. Randall never showed his face again. Last I heard, he was living in a trailer near Macon, blaming everyone but himself. Ava moved back north, left Leo behind. Mitchell never said a bad word about her in front of their son, and that, I think, is its own kind of strength. Leo calls the farmhouse Nana's big house. He helps me feed the birds and collects acorns in little mason jars. One afternoon, he asked me why my porch swing squeaks. "Because it's old," I said. "Like you?" he grinned. "Exactly like me." He climbed into my lap, curled against my chest, and whispered, "I like it." And that right there, was the revenge. Not the legal wins, not the fiery confrontations or the silences I let stretch in place of rage. But this, a small boy safe in my arms, a house that breathes, a life not just survived, but reclaimed. I didn't just keep my home, I made it a sanctuary again. And no matter how many storms come, it stands. Because I stand. Next part. The day my son forgot my birthday, I told